What's going on, everybody? We'll be continuing on. Started with page 106. Boot blacking was not even to be considered. There was nothing left. He was unskilled, save as oppressor. Once he had been apprenticed to a journeyman tailor, but he preferred to forget that. No, there was nothing he could do, and there was no sense in working in the summer. He never had done it, at least not since he had been living in New York, so he didn't see why he should do it now. Furthermore, his salary hardly paid his saloon bill, and since his board and room and laundry and clothes came from other sources, why not quit work altogether and develop these sources to their capacity output? These things look much brighter this year than ever before. He had more clothes. He had hit the numbers more than ever. He had won a baseball pool of no mean value, and in addition to Emma Lou, he had made many other profitable contacts during the spring and winter months. It was safe for him to loaf, but he couldn't carry Braxton, or rather, he wouldn't. Yet he liked him well enough to not kick him into the streets. Something he told Emma Lou should be done for him first, so Alva started doing things. First, he got him a girl, or rather steered him in the direction of one who seemed to be a good bet. She was, as usual, Braxton had a little trouble in attracting her to him. She was a simple minded, oversexed little thing from a small town in central Virginia near to Harlem and had hitherto always lived in her hometown where she had been employed since her 12th year as a maid of all work to a wealthy white family. For 4 years, she had been her master's concubine and probably would have continued in that capacity for an unspecified length of time had not the mistress of the house decided that after all it might not be good for her two adolescent sons to become aware of her father's philandering. She had had she had to accept it. Most of the women of her generation and in her circle had done likewise, but these were post-war days of modernity, and well, it wasn't just being done with the growing intelligence of the darkies and the increased sophistication of children. So Anise Hamilton had been surreptitiously surreptitiously shipped away to New York, and a new maid of all work had mysteriously appeared in her place. The mistress had seen to it that this new maid was not as desirable as the niece, but a habit's a habit, and the master of the house was not the sort to substitute one habit for another. If anything, his wife had had her more herself, um, more miserable by the change, since the last girl loved much better than she worked, while the niece proved competent on both scores, thereby pleasing both master and mistress. A niece had come to Harlem and deposited the money her deposited the money her former mistress had supplied her in the postal savings. She wouldn't hear to placing it in any other depository. Banks had a curious and discomforting habit of closing their doors without warning and without the foresight to provide their patrons with another nest egg. If banks in Virginia went broke, those in wicked New York would surely do so. Uncle Sam had the whole country behind him, and everybody knew that the United States was the most wealthy of the world nations. Therefore, what safer place than the post office for one's bank account? Oh, then the post office. Anise got a job too, almost immediately. Her former mistress had given her a letter to a friend of hers on Park Avenue, and this friend had another friend who had a sister who wanted a stock girl in her exclusive modiste shop. And Niece was the type. What's going on? Sorry. The niece was the type to grace such an establishment as this person owned, just the right size to create a small uniform for shapely enough to allow the creator of the uniform ample latitude for bizarre experimentation. Most important of all, her skin, the color of beaten brass, with the copper overtones synchronized with the gray plaster walls, hardwood furniture, and powder blue rugs in the Mason Quantrell. Anise had soon had any had any number of boy friends with whom she had varying relations, but she willingly dropped them all for Braxton. And simple village girl that she was, expecting him to do likewise with his girlfriends. She had heard much about the two-timing sugar daddies of Harlem, and while she was well versed in the art herself, having never been particularly true to her male employer, she did think that this sort of thing was different. That in that any time was, she was willing to play fair. Her consort should do otherwise. Alva was proud of himself and noticed how rapidly things progressed between Anise and Braxton. They were together constantly, and Anise, not used to giving her hometown boyfriends some of Mr. Bossman's bounty, was soon slipping Braxton spare change to live on. She undertook to pay his half of room rent, and finally, within 3 weeks, that was, as Alva phrased it, treating Braxton royally. But as ever, he was insisted upon being perverse. His old swank and swagger was much in evidence. With most of his clothing out of the pawn shop, he attempted to dazzle the avenue when he paraded its length in alluring a niece, attired in clothes borrowed from her employer's stockroom beside him. The bronze replica of Rudolph Valentino was in the argot of Harlem's pool hall Johnnies. Out of the out the barrel, the world was his. He had it in a bottle, and he need only to make it secure by corking. But Braxton was never the person to make anything secure. He managed to capture the entire universe, but he can never keep it pent up, for he would soon let it alone to look for two or more like it. It was to be expected then that Braxton would lose his head. He did, deliberately and diabolically, because Anise was so madly in love with him. He imagined that all the other women should do as she had done, and how much more delightful and profitable it would be to have two or three Anises instead of one. So he began a crusade, spending much of Anise's money to campaign funds. Alba quarreled, and Anise threatened, but Braxton continued to explore and to expand. Anise finally revolted when Braxton took another girl to dance on her money. He had done this many times before, but she hadn't known about it. She wouldn't have known about it this time if he hadn't told her. He often did things like that, thought it made him more desirable. Despite her simple mindedness, Anise had spunk. She didn't like to quarrel, but she wasn't going to let anyone make a fool out of her. And so the next week, after the heartbreaking incident, she had moved and left no forwarding address. It was presumed that she had gone downtown to live in the apartment of the woman for whom she worked. Braxton seemed unconcerned about her disappearance and continued his peacock like march for some time, with feathers unruffled, even by the frequent trips to the pawn shop. But a peacock could hardly preen an unplumaged body. And though Braxton continued to strut, in a few weeks after the break, he was only a sad semblance of his former self. Alvin nagged at him continually. Damned if if I'm going to carry you. Braxton would remain silent. You're the most no count nigger I know. If you can't do anything else, why in the hell don't you get a job? I don't see you working. Braxton would answer. Oh, I don't see you working. Braxton would answer. And you don't see me starving either. Would the would be the comeback. Oh, just cause you got that little black wench. That and That's all right about the little black wench. She's 40 with me, and I know how to treat her. I bet you couldn't get 5 cents out of her. I wouldn't try. Hell, If you tried, it wouldn't make no difference. There's a gal ready to pay to have a man, and there's lots more like her. You couldn't even keep a good-looking gold mine like a niece. Wish I could find her. Braxton would sulk a little, thinking that his silence would discourage Alva, but Alva was not to be shut up. He was truly outraged. He felt that he was being imposed upon, being used by someone who thought himself superior to him. He would admit that he wasn't as handsome as Braxton, but he certainly had more common sense. And the next Monday, Braxton moved. Alva was to take Emily to the midnight show at the Lafayette Theater. He met her as she left work, and they had taken the subway uptown. On the train, they began to talk, shouting into one another's ears, trying to make their voices heard above the roar of the underground tube. Do you like your new home? Alva shouted. He hadn't seen her since she had moved 2 days before. It's nice, she admitted loudly, but it would be nicer if I had you there with me. He patted her hand and held it regardless of the onlooking crowd. Maybe so, sugar, but wouldn't you like me if you had? Oh, but you wouldn't like me if you had to live with me all the time. Emily was aggrieved. I don't see how you could say that. How do you know? That's what made me mad last Sunday. Alva saw that Emily was ready for an argument, and he had no intention of favoring her or of discomforting himself. He was even sorry that he said as much as he had when she had first broached the living together matter over the telephone on Sunday, calling him out of bed before noon while Geraldine was there too, looking but not asking for information. She smiled at her indulgently. If you say another word about it, I'll kiss you right here in the subway. Emma didn't put it beyond him, so she could do nothing but smile and shut up. She rather liked him to talk to her that way. Alva was shouting into her ear again, telling her a scandalous tale he claimed to have heard while playing poker with some of the boys. He thus contrived to keep her entertained until they reached the 135th Street station, where they finally emerged from beneath the pavement to mingle with the frowsy crowds of Harlem's Bowery, Lenox Avenue. They made their way to the Lafayette, the Jews' gift of entertainment to Harlem colored folk. Each week, the management of this theater presents a new musical review of the three-a-day variety with motion pictures, all guaranteed to be from 3 to 10 years old, sandwiched in between. On Friday nights, there is a special midnight performance lasting from 12 o'clock until 4 or 4:30 in the next morning, according to the stamina of the actors. The audience does not matter. It would as soon sit until noon the next day if the high yaller chorus girls would continue to tell stale jokes just so long as there was a raucous blues singer thrown in every once in a while for a vulgar variety. Before Malou and Alva could reach the entrance door, they had to struggle through a crowd of well-dressed young men and boys congregated on the sidewalk in front of the theater. The midnight show at the Lafayette on Friday was quite a social event among the certain classes of Harlem folk. And if one is a sweetback or a man about town, one must be standing in front of the theater, if not inside. It costs nothing to obstruct the entrance that way, and it adds much to one's prestige. Why? No one knows. Okay, that's it for this one. I will be back and continuing on. Okay, so it should be almost at the end of the next main part. All right, I will see you guys later in the debate. Depends. All right, see ya.